Hello and welcome to Swayambhu Kannada Language Learning Series. My name is Varsha T. Nayak and I am excited to guide you through today's lesson. In our previous classes, we have covered several important grammar points that form the foundation of Kannada language learning. We started by exploring the Kannada script, which is truly a marvel in itself. You have also learned about Kagunita and how to write numbers in Kannada, which will be very useful in your everyday communication. By now, I hope that all of you are able to confidently identify the characters in the Kannada script and are comfortable reading the lessons. This is a huge milestone in your language learning journey, and I am proud of the progress each of you has made so far. In today's class, we will be diving into the concept of possessive or genitive markers in Kannada. This is an essential grammar point that will help you express possession and relationships between people, objects and concepts in Kannada. So, let's get started and learn how to use possessive markers correctly in different contexts. To begin, let's first understand what possessive forms are using examples from English, and then we will relate them to Kannada. So what are possessive forms? In grammar, possessive forms are used to show ownership or relationship between a noun and something else. In English, the possessive form is typically formed by adding an apostrophe and an yes. For example, John's book, Mary's house, or simply by using the preposition of. For example, the color of the car. For example, John's car indicates that the car belongs to John. The book of teacher indicates the book that belongs to the teacher. Now let's explore the possessive forms in Kannada. Possessive forms in Kannada are often marked by the suffix a added to the noun. This marker shows possession similar to how we use yes or of in English. However, there are certain internal changes that occur when the possessive marker is added, especially with human nouns. Let's explore the internal changes with the possessive marker a. In Kannada, when the possessive marker a is added to a noun, especially human nouns, internal changes occur. These changes happen primarily with human nouns that end in different vowels. Human nouns ending with a to these nouns, when possessive a is combined, they undergo a change where an additional na is appended, forming a new structure that indicates possession or of in English. This construction can be seen as the equivalent of the English apostrophe plus yes or preposition of. Example of possessive forms with internal changes. Let's go through some examples where the internal change happens with human nouns ending in a. In each of these cases, when the possessive marker a is added, the word undergoes an internal change by adding na to the form of a possessive structure. Maga plus a becomes magana. Magana, meaning of the son or sons. Example in a sentence. Magana hosa mane. Magana hosa mane. The son's new house. Let's look at one more example. Rama plus a becomes Ramana. Ramana, meaning of Rama or Ramas. Example in a sentence. Ramana pustaka. Ramana pustaka. Rama's book. Let's look at one more example. Kamala plus a. Kamalana. Kamalana, which means of Kamala or Kamalas. Kamalana or kamalala. Kamalala is also used under some exceptions. Kamalala karu. Kamalala karu, which means Kamala's car. Akka. Akka plus a becomes akkana. Akkana, which means of the elder sister or sisters. Example in a sentence: Akkana samasye. Akkana samasye, the elder sister's problem. Similarly, we have Anna plus a, which becomes Annana. Annana, which means of elder brothers. For example, Annana karyakrama. Annana karyakrama, the elder brother's event. To summarize, possessive forms in Kannada are created by adding the suffix a to a noun, with internal changes occurring when the noun ends in a. These changes form a possessive structure similar to the English apostrophe plus s or the preposition of. Understanding these forms is crucial in mastering possession and relationships in Kannada. As you continue learning, you will become more familiar with using these forms naturally in both spoken and written Kannada. Now, let's move on to possessive forms with a added to nouns ending in e or a. In this section, we will learn about the possessive forms that occur when the possessive marker a is added to nouns ending in e or a sound. Whether the noun is human or non-human, when the possessive marker is added, an internal change occurs when the a suffix is followed by ya in these cases. This change marks possession similar to the English possessive apostrophe s or of. When a noun ends with e or a, adding the possessive marker a results in the form ya being appended. This transformation is very important. Please keep that in mind. Let me give you some examples of possessive forms with internal changes. Ravi plus a. Please note, Ravi has the sound ending with e. Ravi plus a becomes Raviya. Raviya, meaning of Ravi or Ravis. Let me give you an example in sentence. Idu Raviya pustaka. Idu Raviya pustaka. This is Ravi's book. Similarly, Tande plus a becomes Tandeya. Tandeya. Please note that Tande has the sound ending with a. So, Tande plus a becomes Tandeya, meaning of father or fathers. Let me give you an example in a sentence. Tandeya kelasa. Tandeya kelasa. Father's work. Likewise, Tangi plus a becomes Tangiya. Tangiya, meaning of younger sister or younger sisters. Tangiya bhashe. This is an example in sentence. Tangiya bhashe, younger sister's language. Next, we have one more example. Nai plus a becomes Naiya. Naiya, which means of dog or dogs. For example, Naiya biscuitu. Naiya biscuitu, the dog's biscuit. Mane plus a becomes Maneya. Maneya, which means of the house or houses. For example, Maneya karyakrama. Maneya karyakrama, the house's program. Adding a to other nouns. Now, let's practice adding the possessive marker a to more nouns ending in e or a sound. Observe how the change happens in each case. Sose plus a becomes Soseya. Soseya, which means daughter-in-laws. Soseya Nitya Karyakrama, the daughter-in-law's daily routine. Huli plus A becomes Huliya. Huliya, meaning of tiger or tigers. For example, Huliyadari. Huliyadari, the tiger's path. Kate plus A becomes Kateya. Kateya, which means of the story. For example, Kateya Pustaka. Kateya Pustaka, which means stories book. Kitaki plus A becomes Kitakiya. Kitakiya, which means of the window. Hendati plus A becomes Hendatiya. Hendatiya, which means of wife. For example, Hendatiya Hesaru. Hendatiya Hesaru, the wife's name. Tai plus A becomes Taiya. Taiya, of the mother. For example, Taiya Preeti. Taiya Preeti, a mother's love. In spoken language, this possessive is sometimes not used, but in writing we have to use the possessive forms. In Kannada, the use of internal changes such as the addition of ya is an example of how the language marks possession in a unique and systematic way. These forms are not simply arbitrary, they follow specific phonological rules and contribute to the smooth flow of the language. To summarize, we learned how the possessive marker a is added to nouns ending in e or a sound, whether human or non-human. These nouns undergo an internal change where ya is appended, marking possession. We also went through various examples to illustrate how this transformation works in both human and non-human contexts. Next, let's move further and see how possessive forms with a are added to the u ending nouns. In Kannada, when the possessive marker a is added to the nouns that end in u, a slight change occurs in the structure. The final u is dropped and the suffix in is added before the possessive marker a. This is a common phenomenon in Kannada grammar that occurs with nouns and some borrowed words. The possessive marker thus takes the form in. Let me explain again. When a noun ends with u sound, it undergoes two changes upon taking the possessive marker. When the final u is dropped, in occurs. The in suffix is added before the possessive marker a. Please don't get confused. I'll explain in detail with examples. This is specially noticeable with nouns ending in u, including borrowed words, as it ensures the word remains phonetically smooth and fluid in the possessive form. Let me give you examples of the possessive forms with in addition. Let's take a look at few examples where the nouns end with u and how possessive form is created. Kaleju plus a becomes Kalejina. Kalejina, which means of the college. For example, Kalejina Pustaka. Kalejina Pustaka, the college's book. Kadu plus a becomes Kadina. Kadina, which means of the forest or forests. For example, in a sentence, Kadina Prakriti. Kadina Prakriti, the forest's nature. Klasu plus a becomes Klasina. Klasina, which means of the class. For example, Klasina Samaya, the class's time. Adding a to more u ending nouns. Now, let's practice adding the possessive marker a to more nouns ending in u. Observe the change in the addition of in. Uru plus a becomes urina. Urina. Please note that all these words are ending with u. For example, uru, where the last word is u. Uru plus a becomes urina, which means of native place. For example, Urina Samskriti. Urina Samskriti. The native place's culture. Bassu plus a becomes bassina. Bassina, which means of the bus. For example, bassina yatrika. Bassina yatrika. The bus's passenger or the passenger of the bus. Pennu plus a becomes pennina. Pennina, which means of the pen. Halu plus a becomes halina. Halina, which means of the milk. For example, halina ruchi. Halina ruchi, the taste of the milk. Hengasu plus a becomes hengasina. Hengasina, which means of women or women's. For example, ಆ ಹೆಂಗಸಿನ ಹೆಸರು ಏನು? ಆ ಹೆಂಗಸಿನ ಹೆಸರು ಏನು? What is the name of that woman? Mysuru plus a becomes Mysurina. Mysurina, which means of Mysore. For example, Mysurina Chamundi Betta. Mysurina Chamundi Betta, the Chamundi Hills of Mysore. Tamil Nadu plus a becomes Tamil Nadina. Tamil Nadina, of Tamil Nadu. This rule also extends to borrowed words which often adopt the same possessive markers as native words. As you can see, the possessive form of borrowed words like colleju follows the same pattern as native words, showcasing the language's consistency and flexibility. To summarize, we explored the possessive forms that occur when the possessive marker a is added to nouns ending in u. These nouns undergo two key changes. The final u is dropped and in is added before the possessive marker a. We discussed several examples including both native and borrowed words to understand how possession is marked in these cases. Now, as we have reached the end of the video, let's do a quick recap of possessive forms in Kannada. In today's lesson, we explored various forms of possessive marker a in Kannada and how it affects different types of nouns. Here's a quick recap of the key points covered. Possessive marker with internal changes, human nouns ending with a. When a is added, na is increment to the noun. For example, Maga plus a, Magana, sons. Rama plus a, Ramana, Ramas. Possessive marker with e or a ending nouns. Nouns ending with e or a, whether human or non-human, take ya as an increment. For example, Ravi plus a becomes Raviya, Ravis. Nai plus a becomes Naiya, dogs. Possessive marker with neuter nouns ending with u. For neuter nouns ending with u, in is added before a to form the possessive. For example, Colleju plus a becomes Collegina, Collegina, of the college. Similarly, Kadu plus a becomes Kadina, Kadina, of the forest. In our next class, we'll explore more complex structures like datives in Kannada. Keep practicing these forms and feel free to ask questions if you have any doubts. Thank you for joining today's class and I look forward to continuing our exploration in Kannada. Thank you. Namaskara.